Hip-hop.
Anonymous. Saturdays.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another special edition of Sapo Studios Scratch Track Saturdays. We are live here in Burbank, California, with one hell of a special in-studio guest and a very special friend, Ashley Osborn.
Intro, bestie.
So excited to have you here.
I'm so excited. I'm always like really afraid to do things like this, but with friends, it is safe. There's nowhere I'd rather be.
I hope we make it comfortable.
Yes,
I'm already
a safe
cozy.
Space.
Are you kidding me? We've got Kiki. We've got sofa. First of all, if I can be like cross-legged, I'm happy. I just want to be cozy at all times.
Well,
thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for coming out.
And thank you to everyone that's listening right now. We are Sapo Studios. We're here to empower artists and talk about the artist's journey. Find out exactly what got them onto their creative path and how they're making a career out of it. Today, we have Ashley Osborn, who has quite a resume, and I'm so excited to go through it. Oh, don't make that face. You know how cool the stuff is that you've done.
I don't know what I'm doing.
You don't know. You know.
What is life?
Yeah, and you know, just before we get into it, I mean, the list of celebrities that you've done portraits for and done concert photography for is astronomical. Selena Gomez, Billie Eilish, Katy Perry, Billy Joel, awesome pic with Jelly Roll that was covered in smoke. That was super cool.
Jelly Roll is the fucking best. Am I allowed to swear on this podcast?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great.
Fucking swear away.
Immediate, yes.
Avril Lavigne, who I want to ask you if she's a clone now, because, you know, that's the rumor.
Come on, man.
She just cleared this up.
And Mark Hoppus from Blink-182. I mean, the list goes on and on. Super, super cool. You've done album covers, and we'll get to all of that.
It's so
awesome.
weird hearing somebody else say that. Because
Right?
sometimes when you're in it, just the imposter syndrome is crazy, and it doesn't actually feel like I've done all those things. I was like chaotically updating my website this week because I had this crazy email, and I was like, "What? When the hell did I do all this?
Squeeze
And
all this?
how am I almost 32? Or no, I just turned 32. And how is it 2024?
It's easy to get sucked up and like forget
Yes,
about
we
it.
talk about that all the time.
And you it's important to take that moment of like looking back and checking out the thing and give yourself credit. You know,
What?
you don't need this asshole to say it out loud.
Well, and that's an interesting point. Before we kind of go back to the beginning of everything, when you find yourself in the midst of all of this, don't you think like it's so important to stop and smell the flowers? Because isn't this what you like? Where you've been
ain't got time.
fighting?
No time for that.
Where you've been fighting to be your whole life, to a certain respect. Not fighting, but you know, like moving
Hustling.
towards. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And like, do you ever get a chance to like enjoy it? No.
no. But I think that's the case with like every freelancer I know. It's like you work so hard for so long to get to a place where you are somehow privileged enough to be able to sustain yourself, and then you're just kind of in it, and you got to keep going and going and going, and it's so hard to get to that place where you're, you know, especially in LA, like when you're to be in a place where you're not working most days a week is like the dream. But I feel like with the freelancer mindset and the lifestyle, you're just like always saying yes. One, because you're afraid to say no, and two, sorry, my headphones, and two, it's like, you know, I talk about this a lot, but it's like when you do stop moving after being so busy, it's really hard to like pull yourself out of it or like have that balance, because like you're either at 0 or 100 all the time. There's no in between, and that's a huge part of the reason why I kind of had to step away from touring so much, because that was just a huge part of my life for so long. But like getting
that
off
was like
tour
a recent
is
decision,
crazy,
wasn't it?
Yeah, kind of. I kind of knew after the last tour I did that, like once I got home, I was like, oh, this may be like not the healthiest thing for me anymore, which was like kind of hard to admit, but also like so healthy, and I'm so proud of myself for being able to do it. But yeah, the freelance life is crazy, but it's amazing, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But it is really hard to like be grounded, and the fact that I've done all these things, I'm so grateful. I really am. Like,
does that fear of slowing down come from the idea that like there are so many people trying to do what you're doing, and that if you were to kind of stop for a moment, there's always someone that can kind of step in? Or what do you feel is at the root of that? Because, you know, we've talked to other people who with all of their accomplishments, they feel the same way. And it's like, I can't wrap my brain around that concept when I look at your website and I see all that you've done, how it wouldn't just be like, okay, I can stop for however long I want because people know what I've done. And whenever I choose to pick it back up, my resume speaks for itself and they'll want to hire me. So where does that fear come from?
Easy.
I wish it was that easy. I know. I'm like looking at David. I'm like,
it's
so
almost
much.
like you'd think that, but
You would think that. I would think that.
we're also just in a really weird time right now, especially in LA. And like even my friends who are in like unions and working on set and in film and TV, like everyone I know is really struggling. Like it is a very weird time right now to be a freelancer, and I'm so privileged every single day that like I get to pay my rent making art. Like that's the fucking craziest thing that's ever happened to me in my life, but I definitely don't take it for granted. I do think there is a part of that, but I think I work very actively on trying to get myself out of that like lack mentality of like, you know, it's taken me a very long time. And when I was younger, I feel like my mindset used to be a lot more of what you're saying, of like the more like, you know, competitive or feeling really afraid. But I think now I'm very grateful to be a part of the community that I'm in. I mean, like, you know, I'm in this group chat on Instagram with like all the most prominent female and non-binary photographers in Los Angeles. And we are all so open about what we're going through, about rates, about legal things. We all share work with each other. It's like a really supportive community, and that's incredible. So that makes me feel a lot better because like even when like I do have a minute to slow down, like I had most of this week off, but I've just been working on like a lot of computer things and like my creative direction client stuff. But yeah, it comes in waves, and you've got to like pull yourself out of that lack mentality mindset.
With a group chat like that, you're never afraid, and none of the other people in that group are ever afraid that sharing that information and empowering each other could potentially edge you out of a job.
No, it doesn't feel like that.
That's good.
It doesn't feel like that.
That's
but
good.
I think we're all like very established, and we're all like much older now. You know, we're in like late 20s
More mature.
to like late 30s. Definitely more mature. But I definitely used to feel like that when I was younger.
Yeah.
But I also think, you know, and I've had a crazy situation happen last week with this too, where I had to think a lot about how when I was younger, I was really competitive, but I think that had nothing to do with other people. And that was all just me like really needing to like learn and know my worth as a person, and like just address a lot of trauma I had from when I was younger. Cause it's like, you know, you graduate high school, and I'm sure a lot of people feel this way, but like when I graduated high school and decided to move to Chicago, I didn't really have any financial support or support from anyone. Like I don't have family that I can turn to for support and financial help. Like that's never really been a part of my journey. And, you know, I'm very grateful for that. And no shade to anyone who does. Like that is so beautiful that you have that. But I think that and like that insecurity and that worry of not being able to support myself really was the reason that I was so competitive in my like, you know, 18 to 22,
Right.
23 life.
Well, I want to rewind to even before that.
I know. We have you're so prepared.
So much to talk about.
Yeah.
Here with AO, that's what they call you.
That's what my friends call me.
Did you coin that nickname yourself, or?
No, I feel like that came from like probably like Warped Tour days, like early like 2014, 2015 when I first started doing that.
Because you walked into the room and everyone's like, "Hey,
Ayo!
oh,
Yes, totally. No. But yeah, I don't know. Or like some of my friends call me TC because I shouldn't say this publicly, but my LLC name is Triangle Circle, but it's like
cool.
my logo.
Nice.
Like it's my little AO, but like Triangle Circle, which is crazy because somebody made me this logo in like 2009 or 2010, and like I was definitely not very, you know, spiritual or like self-aware at all. And now that I'm much older and like a lot further on in my spiritual journey, it actually stands for fire spirit. Is like what the symbols are. Like the triangle is fire and the like circle is spirit or like
That's cool.
wholeness.
I wonder if that's part of the reason the OA is called the OA, that TV show.
Yes, and when that came out, everyone was like, "Is that where you got your logo from?" And I was like, "No," but I loved that show. That was I'm so sad that show got canceled.
So upset. Yeah, it was
they
amazing.
really did us
Great
dirty
show.
with that one.
Really,
that was
really
a
cool.
really good show.
Yeah.
I gotta
and it
rewatch
ended
that show.
so cool. cool. Great show.
I'm so
Everyone
into
should
that
check it
type of
out.
stuff,
Yeah.
though. I love that type
Me
of stuff.
too.
So
all right, so Minneapolis.
on track.
Yes, Minneapolis.
Kiki's falling asleep.
That's okay. She'll be interested later when we do the replay.
So good. I can't stop staring at you.
Minneapolis is where you grew up.
Yes.
And I saw that you picked up your first camera at 6. So was that like a disposable? What were you working with?
It's actually such a funny story. So my parents were like never really together when I was born. So my mom like raised me all by herself. You know, shout out mom. But my dad got remarried in like 1998. So I had like just turned 6 years old when he got married, and he got married to this woman who was like. We did not get along very well, but I will give her credit for introducing me to photography, because at like 6, 7 years old, every time I would go visit them, she was always like in her craft room and she was sewing and she would make clothes, and she would always sell them on eBay. She would like make outfits for toddlers, and she was so good at it and so creative. And kind of growing up with her, when we had my little sister was always like modeling for her clothes, and then she would sell them, but it was like the coolest like themed like overalls and stuff, and she always had like really cool cameras around, so that really sparked my interest, because she would always let me take the camera and like go play outside and like shoot photos of my siblings in the yard, and that just kind of spiraled into me really, really loving it. And it's like so funny to talk about that, because I like never took it seriously. I just really loved messing around. I was always like really weirdly good with technology, but I feel like we all kind of were when we were young, because we were like the first computer generation.
Right.
Like,
yeah, we grew up with
remember getting my first like desktop computer and being able to set it up in 5 minutes, and my mom and grandma being like, why are you so good at this stuff? And I was like, I don't know. I just really loved technology stuff, and I was so obsessed with it. So cameras were so fun to me.
And I assume that because of when it was, that was pre-digital and you were shooting on film?
No, it was digital.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
she had
okay.
like a nice digital,
Nice.
like it looked like a full like DSLR, but it wasn't. It was like a like point and shoot one, but it was big and chunky, and I was like,
did you start to learn anything about editing photos at that point, or you were okay?
Oh no, this was like early days. Even in like I remember just all through middle school and high school having like little shitty Kodak point and shoots. Not shitty, but you know, the cheap ones,
Yeah.
and being like, I remember getting Christmas money and being able to get like $150 Kodak point and shoot, and I was like, oh my god, like this is like the craziest thing ever. And like getting like a 1 gigabyte memory card and being like, oh my god, so many photos, like back in the day, and being so excited about it. And that was kind of how I started shooting music, is because I would always take them to concerts and
That's really awesome.
sneak in my little point and shoots. But I say all the time, like, fangirls run the music industry, because like I love them so much, and I think that they're so important, and that love and dedication that they have for music is like something I resonated with so much when I was like 15, 16 years old. Like, I would skip school and go wait in line for Paramore and Fall Out Boy in high school, and like go to Warped Tour really early in the day when I was in high school, and always have little point and shoot cameras. And I started street teaming for record labels, so for Fueled by Ramen and Fearless Records and Victory Records. What a journey. And I would get sent like stickers and posters, and I would have to go to the venues early and pass out, you know, promo material in line. And Fueled by Ramen was my favorite. It was like my dream to work at Fueled by Ramen when I was in high school. Shout out Fueled by Ramen. I love everyone there so much, and now they're like my most consistent client that like always takes care of me, and it's so full circle.
That's
so like
so wild.
work with them so much
And
now.
also, like, the fangirls love you.
Which is
like,
so cool, because I
I've-
love them, and they're so important. Like, they
And-
are the backbone of this industry, and people like, I mean, I think they do. They're getting a lot more credit now.
like your message and like just your photography, like your art. It doesn't happen with many photographers that I've worked with over 8 years. Like,
yeah, I'm so lucky.
it's just you and one other person
I'm so grateful.
that I've been at a concert with, working, and like the
just
fans
love
come
music,
up to you
dude.
out of the crowd and they're like, "Are you Ashley Osborn?"
Oh, you're talking about the forum.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I'm just talking about people knowing you and like
It's
coming
so
up to
wild
you.
to me.
Yeah,
And it's always
awesome.
like young women, and that's like
Yeah.
so crazy. I'm so proud of that, and I'm so honored, and like I just, you know, I started out as them.
That,
like I really
yeah.
was that kid who just loved music, and like I was like most teenagers, I was miserable in high school. I had the worst high school experience ever. Like full Mean Girls. Like my journal was scanned by my best friends and put on MySpace. Like awful,
Oh my
awful,
God.
awful bullying in high school. And I had no friends at school, and my whole community was literally at shows in
So you were like,
Minneapolis.
I'm going to take all their pictures and make them look like shit.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. No.
So
I definitely had some friends in high school, but it was just like a really hard time. But I think that's, so common for everyone now.
That's
like kids
messed
are
up.
just brutal.
Yeah.
Kids
and
are very brutal.
I don't know how it is now, but I still feel like I see a lot of young people really struggling in school, and it really sucks.
Yeah,
it really
does.
sucks.
With
Kids are mean.
Kids are very
Kids
mean.
are mean.
And they don't realize the impact of what they say and do,
Right.
which is the worst part, because some of that stuff
I can't
can
believe
stay
I made
with
it through
you
high school.
for the
I
rest
really
of your
can't.
life.
Yeah. It was hard, but but music like literally was the reason that I made it through, and like having shows to look forward to, and like I'll give my mom that. Like my first concert was when I was like 5 years old, and she would always take me to concerts, and is like the reason that I love going, the reason that I loved going to shows, and the reason I even got into music was because my mom would she was a single mom, she was a waitress, she worked her ass off, but she would always take me to concerts.
That's
and that
so
was like the
awesome.
greatest
Great.
thing ever. So as I got older, and she could really tell I was in a lot of pain with school, she would never cared if I skipped school and went to a show. She was
That's
just
so
like,
great.
you're good. I don't think she knew some of the time, but like even when she did know, she was totally cool with it, as long as I was like being safe, which is hilarious, because when she was like, my mom left home when she was like 13, 14, like she was really young when she left home, and she was like up to absolutely no good. And I was the opposite. Like she thought I was like partying and drinking. Like I was never an alcohol person. I think because I saw how it affected a lot of my family growing up. But like I was literally just going to concerts and hanging out in line all day, and like going to the show and then hanging out afterwards with my friends, and like trying to like take
So wholesome.
selfies with people. Like it was never like, I was never partying. I was also like a really awkward, really chubby little kid. So like it's just so funny. She was like, are you out partying? And I'm like, no, I don't even think I drank until I was like 20, like 19, 20 in college. Like I remember smoking weed in high school a little bit, but like I was never a bad kid. I was a really good kid. I just really liked rock and roll. Like there was the only thing rock and roll about me that young was like I just loved going to shows. I was chilling.
Were you kind of singularly focused when it came to being interested in photography once you picked up the camera? Because as kids we dream of a lot of different things. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be this. I want to be that. Once you had that in your mind that like, oh man, it would be so great to be a photographer. Was it just that?
No, because I never thought that was even a thing. Like I really loved it, but I did really bad in high school. Me being like, I was going to shows all the time. I was definitely getting like mostly C's and D's in high school, and I graduated with a terrible GPA. Like I barely graduated high school. And when I was looking at colleges in Minnesota, I was like getting denied for most of them. Like I remember really wanting to go to my dream at the time in high school. Actually, quick story. I feel like I'm talking so much.
No,
That's why you're
point.
here.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the
Oh my
whole
gosh,
point.
you're so right.
We want you
Wait,
to talk.
what?
Yeah.
Weird, like, because I'm super into like universe shit and like things working out. Quickest story ever.
I love universe shit.
I love universe shit. It's the best. Sophomore year of high school, I was like really into fast pitch. I was not that great, but I was, and I was at practice, like right when I turned 16, I was at softball practice, and I was like, screwing around and like not paying attention, and I was center fielder, and my coach hit me a ball and I wasn't paying attention, and it hit me literally right on the tip of my finger. My finger is so gross because of it. I've never gotten it fixed. But it shattered my finger, completely shattered my finger in the middle of practice. And I never picked up a glove ever again. I was like, fuck sports. I'm done with sports. And that actually was the reason why I started going to more shows, is because I didn't have practice anymore. So I was just fully immersed in the concert experience and just like completely started fucking off of school, which whatever.
Had it not been for that, I would be talking to a professional softball player.
Yes, and I wanted to go to either like U of W Madison, or I was looking at St. Cloud, and I wanted to play fast pitch, and I wanted to be a nurse. That's what I thought I was going to do. But when that happened,
Wow.
it all went off the table, and I was like, I hate sports. Ew. And that's when I started going to shows more. So I got denied from like all these colleges because they were like, what is this kid? She doesn't do anything. She has like a 2.3 GPA or something. Like I was so bad. And I had a meeting with my guidance counselor at school, which was actually like, shout out to my guidance counselor. I do not remember your name to save my life, but I remember her being like, you know, telling me to just like not be so afraid of like what was to come, because like it was all going to work out fine. And she had told me about Columbia College Chicago, and it was a private art school, but it was open enrollment because they really believe that people who are creative don't do well in school, and they really stand by a creative like foundation of education and learning, and like it was the greatest thing ever. So it was open enrollment, so I got accepted, and I ended up going to Columbia, which was so expensive. I had no right to be going.
We'll take anybody's money.
Yeah, literally give us all your money. It was like a $40,000 a year college. But I, you know, thankfully we were very poor, so I got some help forever paying off those loans.
And just before that, when you graduated high school, you got your first DSLR.
Yes.
So was that something you had been saving
Can
up?
I read the bio? Let's go. Yes, I had saved up all my college or my high school graduation money and bought my first Canon Rebel SLR camera, which was like the biggest deal ever for me at the time.
Did that kind of completely expand your horizons with respect to photography, to where before it was just kind of like, you know, you were barely scratching the surface, and now it was like there are all these features and functionality.
I definitely,
and I can really like control everything about the shot.
Yeah, I definitely started taking it a lot more seriously after that, but I still, like, even when I went to Columbia, I wanted to be a publicist on the music side because I was still like, there's no way I'll ever make it as a photographer. But at that point I had started getting my first like press passes and really learning what that was. And I was shooting for this little blog in Minneapolis, based out of Minneapolis. And yeah. So when I moved to Chicago, I was like, I'm going to be a music publicist. Like, you know, I'll never make it as a photographer, but I really loved all the publicists that I had met with. And like, so many of them were so kind to give me photo passes, and like, you know, so I was like, cool, I'll still get to like empower artists, but on the other side of things, and like, I'll go to school for this skill, whatever. So I was going for marketing communications at Columbia, and I actually did so well in college. Like, I got straight A's in college, and I had so much fun at Columbia
because you were finally interested in what you were learning, probably, right?
And like, it was just, they taught us differently. They taught us in a really creative way. So like, all my final projects were like art projects. Like, I could do literally whatever I wanted, even in my like marketing and advertising classes. And I really loved advertising. Like, I don't regret dropping out of school, because I think it was such an important part of my journey. And like, you know, maybe one day I'll go back and finish, but also like, I think I would have been paying off those loans for the rest of my life, and it just didn't really feel worth it. Honestly, most people, it is very rare for me to meet somebody who graduated Columbia. I have one friend in LA who we've actually been like accidentally following each other around since we were 16, but her name is Cecilia, and she ended up graduating Columbia and now is working at BMG, and we work together now, which is so funny. She went for marketing and music. And she's awesome, but I very rarely meet people who graduated from Columbia. I feel like it's such a a blast off point for people to go there and like network and meet and be creative, and then everyone kind of just drops out.
Well,
at least I did.
And I guess like based on what you've said, this is, you know, we already know the answer to this, but you know, I was going to ask you, like, how important you think schooling is to be successful in a career. And, you know, I think that there's a certain level of like, just, you know, coming into yourself that happens when you go to college and you meet other like-minded people, maybe, and that's important from a social aspect, from a broadening your horizons and kind of changing your perspective aspect. But the actual learning part of it doesn't necessarily have to come from there in order for you to succeed. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I have never once, I had Columbia on my resume. I don't think I've had a resume updated in like 6 or 7 years, but I used to have Columbia on my resume, and I've never once had anyone be like, oh, so did you graduate? Like, it's never like, oh, you went to Columbia, great. Like, I don't know, it's hard to say, because
I kind of think people assume that when you put it on your resume you've graduated.
Listen, I will be paying off that debt for the rest of my life. I'm going to really soak in that Columbia.
That's
on
right.
My next resume, whenever, if I ever make another one.
Listen, throw it on every
It will
resume.
have Columbia College Chicago with a focus in marketing communications and a focus in PR on my resume. Because I went for 2.5 years.
You did. One of your
It's fine.
big sort of motivations in life, it seems, based on your bio, was healing and empowerment through art.
Yeah.
Where does that come from? And in your estimation, how did you think you were going to do that? Just by, fulfilling your own dreams artistically, and hopefully that would touch other people, or did you have some greater idea of how you would kind of reach the masses in that way?
It's a really good question. I feel like because I started as such a fan of music and like somebody who was, I'm just like a really emotional person. I really am. I can't really hide that. But I think the reason I was so drawn to photography, and I honestly think the reason I'm so uncomfortable saying anything nice about myself, but I will say, I think the reason really early on that people were drawn to my work was because I did look at everything so emotionally and intense and dark. And like, I feel like when you're in the photo pit or you're capturing music, my favorite part about it is just like capturing the most raw moments that artists have, because it is just like this beautiful exchange of like energy and art. Like I'm always so drawn to like anytime an artist is on the ground or screaming or emotional, or like so many photos. Some of my friends make fun of me for this all the time, but like so many photos I post or that are in my portfolio are like artists with their head back, like, just like really emotional moments. And I just am really drawn to that. And I think it's like a superpower. And I've had artists tell me this before. Look at me trying to say nice things about myself. So uncomfortable.
Just do it.
But I have had artists say before that, like, I really do see them. Like, I try to really see people and like document who they are as an artist and as a creative, and like their emotional side, like the emotional side of themselves. And I think that's how I've been aligned with so many.
Yeah. As you're saying some of these things, like the photos that are on the screen behind you as you're talking about it,
that
is
Avril moment is so important.
Everything up here, you're responsible for, which is unbelievable. And
so
when you
weird
look back
to
on
see.
some of these photos,
Like, when did that
do you recall all of these moments, or does some of it kind of become a blur?
I recall every single one.
Yeah.
I can look at a photo and I know exactly where I was or where I shot it. That's not true. Like, some of the touring stuff is hard, like, because it's the same thing every night. But most of the time, if it's like, especially if it's a pop artist, I can tell like what city it was because I remember kind of what they were wearing.
When you talk about being in that moment of capturing that emotion coming through the frame, right? And these artists kind of like being larger than life on stage, and that's when you get to see them for their true nature. How do you evoke that when you're doing portraiture? Because, that's a very set up thing. It's very structured. Okay, we're going to put the lighting over here, and we're going to put you over here. I kind of want you in this position. How do you make it feel like organic, and what's your process with respect to kind of pulling out the true nature of someone and getting some great shots of them in that way?
That's such a good question. I think there's two sides of it. I think I learned, I'm going to rewind a bit. I think I learned, other photographers will understand this. I think there is especially when you're on tour, or, when you're documenting an artist that you just met, or like literally an A-list pop star and you're in the room with them, I have this like ability to like suck in my energy and like really I just try to be completely invisible. I try to be, not in a bad way, but I try to blend in with the energy of a space so that I can document somebody and not be a disruption or be like a source of uncomfort if I'm like new to that camp or that room,
That is a talent in itself.
It is really hard, and it's really important. And I think a lot of my job is like really being able to read energy or read a room. And I think I'm really, really, really good at that. And I'm really proud of being good at that because it's taken me a really long time. But I also like, I can look at somebody and know exactly how they're feeling. It's just like, I don't know if it's a superpower or what it is, but I've always been like that. And I think I always see TikToks that are like, if you're able to pick up on somebody when they walk into a room, it means you're traumatized. And I'm like, well, okay. But I feel like it is like a superpower to be able to really like look at someone and tell how they're feeling. And it's like, I'm like an artist like Jessie J, who I've been working with since 2017. She was like the real first pop artist to give me a shot. And I remember when I started to work with her, it was really just like paying attention and watching and learning and being a fly on the wall and like really documenting these like really intimate moments. But the only way that I'm able to do that is by making myself invisible and like being a source of comfort. And nowadays, in settings where, yes, I'm still in the room with A-list pop stars, I more so take pride in my ability to be on set and create those safe spaces. Like most of my studio shoots are like album cover shoots now, especially with women. They always start with like a powwow. And I actually learned this from Jessie J too, because every music video set I've ever been on with her, she would do a huge powwow where she'd make every single person on set, even the PA, from the PA to the director to her glam team. Everyone would have to come into the middle of the room and, we'd do a powwow and we would all introduce ourselves and say our names and what we do. And I like still carry that into my life, like all the time. Like on set, it's really important to me. I always make everybody do a little stretching, even if it's like 60 seconds. We like all touch our toes. We get in a circle. I have everyone, I ask everyone very kindly to just exhale all the air and all the energy. Like usually load in is very chaotic. So I make everybody take the deepest breath of their day. Which is interesting because I've talked to Dave about how on certain shoots, it's like there's this sense of everyone's doing their own job. Yeah. And sometimes I don't fuck with that. Sometimes it's so like, blindered that by the end of the shoot, that's when people are introducing themselves. And it's like, hey, I saw you running around. Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah. It doesn't feel good to walk into a space where... Because I've been in those situations where I'm brought into a space to like do my job and like I'm not introduced to literally the artist even. I'm just like told to like go start shooting. And it's like, I can do that and I'm really good at it. But in my shoots when I'm in charge, I'm a very big fan of like, I always also say like this is a really collaborative space. Any ideas are welcome here. I've heard one of my best friends / like now downstairs neighbor is like one of the most sought out first assistants, LDs, digitechs in LA. And he's worked with every major photographer from, like literally everyone you could think of. And some of the horror stories I've heard from him, just from like how he's been made to feel on set to like having to send headshots in to like see if you're pretty enough to be on set, even as a crew member, to like I just don't believe in that. And I believe that like if you're on sets, if you're on my set, you're always going to feel welcome. You're always going to feel safe. You're always going to feel seen. I'm always going to tell you thank you. I'm just not the kind of person who... I was actually... One of my assistants came over to my house today to help me because she's been doing a lot more production design and she's working on this project we have tomorrow. And I was just telling her, we were talking about just how things in LA are really hard right now. And I'm just a very big believer in like rate transparency. Like I will always tell somebody what I'm making on a project versus what they're making. I'm, I wish... on your last shoot? Which one? I'm kidding. Which one? But it's just really important. I know I'm getting a little off track. No, not at all. None of this is off track because it's about you. Right and yeah, I love hearing all of this. It's really wonderful, your mentality. I'm curious, between the time that you got that DSLR and you started to... Jesus, Dave. No. Trying to tie it back. That's great. I love it. That's why honestly, he's here. I am curious about this. This isn't just me trying to suck us back to the camera. What I broke down. No, but between that time and the time that you start to really find success doing what you love, was there any sort of actual training? Or was it all? No. Was it all kind of? My training was the road. Well, no, that's pretty impressive. And
you didn't
I
learn anything at Columbia?
Absolutely not. Yeah. I've never taken a photo class in my life, for the record.
See, ever. And that's why I wanted to ask that question and highlight that, because that's so empowering to other people that maybe you have something that you love and you feel like, well, there's no way I could do it if I don't have this many hours of training that's, very structured.
Hence imposter syndrome.
You can do literally anything you want. That way. Keegan, who I was talking about earlier, he always calls it YouTube University. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was just about to say, like, literally, you can learn all the technical.
You can learn
things.
Anything you want. Yeah. I've never taken a photo class. I just figured it out. Read some blogs. Like,
that's amazing.
Just play around.
And along the way, you never did you ever encounter people that kind of were holding back their knowledge because they didn't want to? Yeah.
Didn't want to share it with you on set.
Oh yeah. Also, when I was coming up, do I want to say that? I think when I moved to LA, I had reached out to a lot of photographers that I look up to and respect that were women. And I was really, I talk about this with Keegan a lot. I'm talking about Keegan a lot on this podcast, but we love Keegan. He's just the best. And he, you know, was able to assist for years and learn so much for years. And I think when I finally moved to LA, I was in a really good place in my career, and I had been touring with a lot of really big artists, and, you know, it was amazing, but I had like literally zero real studio experience. And I was reaching out to so many people just like, hey, can I assist you? Like, I'm really wanting to learn more. And like, nobody let me assist them.
So what was your like real first big break then to be able to make a career out of this? Because, you know, you were doing sort of that thing where you're getting these stickers and passing things out in concerts and kind of like you're tiptoeing your way in. But what was your real first thing that put you on that path, do you think?
It's a really good question. Well, to rewind a bit too, I ended up being in Chicago. I dropped out of Columbia in 2012. Mm-hmm. So that was my last semester. I did 2.5 years, and then I ghosted Columbia and was like, I'm not paying. Bye. See ya. Thank you. Thanks for the fun. And then I started.
We won't tag them because they're still looking for you.
Yeah. Tag them. Whatever. Sorry. Love ya. Love ya. So I had just chaotically I had started my own music magazine in 2011 with two of my very good friends, Cara, who had interned at AP as a graphic designer. So she was our designer. She designed everything. She is incredible. Cara Banyak. I always feel like I would say her last name. I'm saying her last name wrong, most likely. So I'm very sorry. And then my friend Mackenzie Hughes, who also went to Columbia with me and was just like one of the most amazing writers ever. So we started this like online magazine together because I was shooting so many shows at the time. This is when we were all at Columbia still. I was shooting so many shows, and I just wasn't being given chances to like work directly with artists. And I was like, okay, well, if no one's going to give me a chance, I'm going to make my own chances. I want to make my own opportunities. And so we started this magazine, and I remember getting to shoot with like Silverstein and Maud Sun and like, oh my God, I was just thinking about him. Travis Mills, who used to be called T Mills, but now he's like killing it and is hosting on Apple. And I'm like so happy for him. But that was how I started getting more opportunities. And through Highlight, the magazine was called Highlight, not Highlights, the kids magazine.
I used to love Highlights.
But through Highlight.
So cool. And you were in Chicago at the time.
I'll have to show you guys after, but it was like real issues. Like we had real issues that were like, we had like articles every week. It was so fucking awesome.
And it was just the three of you.
Yeah, well, it quickly expanded. And then I was editor-in-chief for quite a while. And through that, I met so many people. And that is how I met Craig Owens from Chiodos. I don't know if you guys were into melodic hardcore like I was, but Chiodos is the fucking greatest of all time. I loved that band. Yeah. Loved that band. And that's how I met Craig in 2012. So it quickly kind of escalated because of Highlight, because I was meeting so many people. And I remember through a friend at Columbia, I had met online this girl, Lindsay Gunolfson, who instantly became one of my very good friends. And she was in a band at the time called Paris. But they were called something else before they were called Paris, but I'm not remembering. But they were like super hardcore. And so this was like all kind of happening in like 2012, 2013. And Paris got their first record deal and got signed. And Lynn and I were just really good friends on the internet. And she offered me my first tour.
Amazing.
So in the fall of 2013, I went out on my first tour with Lynn. And it was like we were one of the first band of 5 bands. And it was like a Skylit Drive, For All Those Sleeping, Wolves at the Gate, and I the Mighty, and us. And I just remember everybody really taking us under their wing, because at the time it was like the biggest deal that I was out on tour. And I think before that I had only ever done like 2013 Chiodos took me out for like 3 shows on Warped Tour, and it was like the biggest thing that has ever happened to me. When that happened, I was like, oh, I've made it. I'm on Warped Tour. Like, this is crazy. And I just remember Craig. Shout out Craig. Like, he's been through a lot. We haven't caught up in a really long time, but that dude just really went out of his way for me. And it was just never anything but like love and respect, like older brother, little sister energy. And he just like saw something in me that I didn't even see in myself and really fought for me and like gave me so many opportunities. And I just remember, speaking of universe shit, this is like the craziest story that I don't think I've ever told, but I'll say it really quick because
I absolutely
I'm
love
talking
you
so much.
addressing the camera when you say that. I saw you.
Listen, this is crazy shit. Okay. So listen, this camera. In 2008, I was a sophomore. I was a junior in high school, and my mom used to date a lot of biker guys. So
Shout out Hell's Angels.
No. Well, yes.
Yeah.
I grew up around a lot of them. They're actually all very nice.
Oh, good.
Everyone that I've ever met that has been a part of a club has been nothing but a sweet teddy bear. And that's all I have to say. I love bikers. They're all sweet angels. Just a lot going on. But my mom's friend owned this bar. She was friends with the owner of the bar because it was a biker bar. And next door, it was called The Joint, but there was the Caboose next door. And they had, it was like, for a while, they were like booking shows there, which was crazy to me because I was like, oh my God, I grew up literally as like a toddler running around this bar. Like, I have been coming here my whole life. So now that I'm 16, all these bands I love are playing. And so I didn't even know they were playing a show, but I was like 16. My mom called me after school and was like, do you want to come see this band, Chiodos, at the Caboose? And I was like, what? Yeah. So I get there and like her friend who's the owner sneaks me into the meet and greet. So I like randomly wasn't even that big of a fan of this band, met Greg Owens, met them all when I was 16. I don't even think I ever told them this, right? And then all these years later, they end up being the first band to ever take me out on tour and like hire me.
God.
And I still was like never really that big of a fan of them. I just thought it was crazy that like there was like opener bands, like the Devil Wears Prada opened that tour. I don't know if you guys are into hardcore, but that's like my shit. I loved like more so metal, I guess, but I just loved everyone on that tour. And it was just so funny that like I'm 16 and then like 7 years later, they were the first band. So I did the fall tour with Paris in 2013. And then that spring in 2014, my friend Brian Landreth, bless his heart, he was doing merch for Chiodos at the time and was going to be moving up to guitar teching. And so he really kind of threw it out there, and I did too, of like, hey, why doesn't Ashley come do merch and photo? And so I remember getting hired. I was making like $600 a week or something plus tips, and it was like the second I got that tour offer, it was like March of 2014, I like quit my Starbucks job. At the time I was working at like a frozen yogurt. I had so many weird jobs in Chicago. I worked at Wrigley Field for a while as one of those fan photographer people who would like sell you photos. I was so bad at that job. I am not a salesperson. And then I worked at a froyo shop and Starbucks, and I was hustling, and I quit my jobs, and I was like, I'm going to do this. And that was the last real job I ever had. That was like the thing that started it all. Chiodos, man.
I
Who
love
would have
those
thought?
full circle moments.
I know.
The
They're
idea
the best.
that like, you know, you reconnect in that way years later. It's really remarkable. And it's like you look at things like that and you say, how can anyone say this wasn't meant to be?
I know.
You know?
And I also want to say too that like, I know, you know, a lot of women have had like really awful things happen to them on tour, or like experiences, but like I feel so lucky that like those guys they were like much older than me, but they all were just like big brother energy and would just harass the shit out of me all the time, but it was always like out of love. And like they always, like, that crew took such good care of me. And I remember my first tour manager ever, who I'm still friends with to this day, it was this woman, Jenny Douglas, and she ran our ship, and she was the first tour manager who taught me like how to sleep on a bunk, not to shit on the bus, like how touring works. And like she is still like one of my heroes in this world. Like I love her so much. I've been so taken care of on tour by everyone I've ever toured with, and Chiodos was like the thing that started it all for me. And then that year we just ended up doing so much crazy shit, and I was the worst merch person that you could literally ever have. Like I just could not stay organized to save my life. I am not an organized, I'm very neurodivergent. Like that was not my path in life, was to be a merch person. It's the hardest job. It is the hardest job that you could ever have on tour, being a merch person. People do not understand. Like, people who are doing arena level shit, like just like they are getting like pallets and pallets and pallets and pallets and pallets of merch a day, and you're counting all this stuff in, and you have to keep it all organized and do all the accounting. It is
Make your head spin.
literally, it's the hardest job in the world. So tip your merch people. If you buy anything
the
from a
merch.
merch person and you don't tip your merch person, that is wrong.
Shame on you.
I do tip the merch people. Actually,
Merch
when I
people
buy.
work their asses off, especially at small clubs. When that person is wearing a tour laminate, that is the band's merch person. You got to take care of your merch people, which most people do, but it's the hardest job in the world. I was so bad at that job. I didn't do that for very long.
Luckily, you were good at something.
Luckily I was, but I was hustling on that tour, but everyone took good care of me. I was doing merch, photo, social media. I was like assistant tour managing once Jenny left and we got a new tour manager. That was a
That's wild.
whole thing.
When you talk about the idea that the Highlight magazine that you guys put together kind of put you into that world because you were taking the reins and doing it for yourself, even though you didn't graduate from school doing marketing, communication, and public relations, were you the person that was reaching out and able to make those connections yourself with that
100%.
experience?
Yeah.
And were you just kind of cold reaching out to people and doing it in massive numbers so that something would hit? And
Yep. Yeah, I was the one reaching out to all the publicists. And what's crazy is like so many of those publicists and people at labels who said yes and gave me a chance are like still my friends. Like it's pretty wild.
That's amazing. When you were kind of, before you got thrust into this world and you started to dream about photographing these bands and photographing individuals, was there ever any band or individual that you were like, man, I hope one day I'm in a position to photograph that person? It's okay if there
There's
wasn't.
a few that come to mind. There's still one that I haven't crossed off my list yet, but I'm not going to say it out loud. There's literally one person left on my list.
Oh, I want to know so bad.
It's Miley Cyrus.
It's going to happen.
I know it is.
I think we're manifesting right now.
No, it is. She is the only one. But no, there was a lot. I honestly...
Which is crazy. I feel like you recently crossed one off your list that was interesting, and where you were like on hold if you were going to go shoot for her or not. And
Yeah,
then, like,
that one we
happened, and it
can't
was
talk
like,
about on the
no,
podcast.
Okay, but that was like but that was like a big
I've
deal.
been
It's-
DA'd to the ground for
yeah.
that one.
But
But it's
talking
like
about
it's a big deal, and it's like
Yeah.
there's people that like
this world is crazy.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you're just like how like what
I know.
Like,
that...
and then it happens, and then you're like, holy shit! Like everyone is just stoked for you. That was like
Yeah.
in the office, or like it's just
Yeah.
so interesting, and I'm learning more about you right now, and
Which is so crazy
yeah.
because I've known you for so long.
I know.
Also, to give some context, the one consistent job I have in this life is arguably my favorite job I've ever had, and that is that I shoot part-time for the Kia Forum, and that is with David over here, and that is how we met and instantly became besties.
Yeah, it's always a great time working.
I'm
together.
so bored when you're not there. David does video for us in-house, but the Forum is my favorite place
It
in
is
the
a-
entire world.
it's a great place.
And the team
it's
is
such a fun
so
place
amazing.
to be. I mean,
The history of that venue. I mean, it was my number one bucket list venue I ever wanted to shoot at. So that's also very full circle because now I work there. And every time I get there, I'm always like,
Yeah,
what? I get to just work here? I have a badge? What?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
How do you make the transition from tour photography and concert photography to photographing portraits of important people?
I don't know. I don't know.
being
I
in the
really
right
don't
place
know.
at the right time.
I feel like, okay, so the last thing I want to say about just like bucket list people, I want to also give a shout out to 21 Pilots because...
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because you shot an album cover for them that dropped yesterday, right?
yes. Which
Amazing.
is crazy. But
Amazing.
they
cool. I
were...
wish we
There were
had a
so
picture.
many full circle moments in regards to them as well. That is so crazy. Like... In 2012, I shot them at a radio festival they played, like opening the festival. They were like headlining the outside stage and then like that closed and everyone went into the amphitheater. And it was, I barely made it for the set. Like I was so late and I was only able to shoot from the crowd because I was so late. So I just started shooting from the crowd. And it was the first time I ever got published in alternative press. It was in 2013. And it was that photo I took of Tyler Joseph. And he's like crowd surfing and their like logo was on this little like promo material right in the middle of it. And Mark Eshelman and Chris Woltman had reached out to me about like a few months later. Yeah, that. They had reached out to me a few months later asking me if they could purchase that photo to be used on a tour ad mat in 2013. And, It's so cool. It's seriously,
That is a cool
like,
photo.
no one understands how much I love this band, and it was such a big deal for me to like finally be published in AP, have it be them. It was the Fall Out Boy Take This to Your Grave anniversary issue, which was like my favorite record of all time. So it was so cool to be in that issue and have it be a photo of them. And Mark Ashelman is just the fucking best. He's been their creative director their entire career. He's like been working with Tyler for so long, and he would just always let me come and shoot the show, and just was so kind and supportive. And they like bought that photo for me for like, I think like $600 or something for just a tour ad mat. Like it was never on merch or anything. And like, that was so nice. Like they
So
could have been
cool.
like, we'll give you $100. Like
Right.
they were so kind and just so incredible and genuine even back then. And it just was so impactful on me. And I just had seen them so many times, and I was really such a fan of their early music. So getting that call during COVID in 2021 to, and I had seen Mark a lot over the years, and they had a photographer for a long time named Brad, who's awesome. And I would see them everywhere. And I saw pilots in London and Minnesota and saw them so many times over the years. And then getting that call in 2021, it was like so surreal to get that call to be like, hey, do you want to shoot all the new stuff for this campaign for this new record that's coming out for Scaled and Icy? And I was like,
Yes.
what? Like, are you serious? And so we did this whole shoot in Columbus, and they are just the best people. I mean, they have the best team, and I will say of everyone I've ever worked for, like, they have taken better care of me than anyone else ever has, and they have always paid me fairly for everything I've ever done. And they are just so incredible to work with. They're the most powerhouse creative team that I've ever worked with in the industry. Like, I would put my life on it. I'm so grateful.
Staying on the subject of album covers, you shot the Billy Joel Turn the Lights On album cover for his
Dude,
Now,
that
fucking
was
cool.
the
that
craziest
is
shit.
unbelievable.
I will never forget getting that email.
Yeah.
Shout out Dave Bed at Columbia. Like, I got this email. I was in the middle of a hike, and I got this email. It was like, hey, are you free to come to New York next week for Billy Joel? And I was like, yeah, but you remember I'm LA based, right? And he literally wrote in the email, he's like, who cares? It's Billy Joel. And I was like, great.
You're right.
Yeah, you're so right. So I went to New York around Thanksgiving, and I fucking stood on stage with Billy Joel at Madison Square Garden and shot this photo of his first single in decades, and
Unreal.
It's so cool.
got to go document him at his house and just do all this stuff. And he is just the coolest person ever.
Now, as much as
So
you're
crazy.
clear-
Shout out Freddie Wexler too. Like, he's the most talented producer in the world. He's produced literally for everyone. Post Malone, Justin Bieber, Ariana. Like, he's crazy. It's insane. And he's the one who got Billy to write the song, which
That's
is
so
cool.
awesome.
Amazing.
Oh, you were telling me about that because there's a whole story.
Yes, because I mean, Billy was like Freddie's favorite artist of all time, and I'm pretty sure his wife like somehow pulled a favor to like have Freddie meet Billy Joel, and Billy was like gonna get his food to go, and then they started talking, and they just immediately became really good friends. And it's so, life is so full circle and magical like that.
It's
I love
crazy
it.
that person encouraged this iconic.
He like
man
got Billy to
like,
write again and sing again.
Like, that's
Unreal.
It's so crazy, and Freddie is just the coolest. And then they had me work with Billy around the Grammys too, which was crazy. We shot all these amazing portraits, and I really want to share them, but I can't yet,
but
so.
it's like, at like what point do you walk inside Billy Joel's house and you're just like, where am I and how
Yeah,
did
no,
I
it
get
was
here?
really
from
wild.
Like, you know,
But he's so normal. He's so cool.
And I kind of wanted to ask a similar
cool.
thing, which is, you know, as much as you are obviously a professional, do you ever find yourself starstruck?
it's a talent, man. You suck it out.
Like,
You-
even
Yeah.
for a second, when you walk into Billy Joel's house, are you like, I'm gonna.
I don't think that.
that would get her invited back.
No, I
No,
just
no,
don't
you don't
think-
show
just
that.
kidding.
You
I
know?
don't think it like really hits me until it's kind of over.
Yeah.
And like I feel like a lot of other creatives feel this. Like there is so much stuff that I've shot and worked on that I'll never be able to ever share. Like arguably all the biggest things I've ever done are things that I'll never be able to share or talk about, which is kind of cool because it's like just for me then, which is like really awesome.
Yeah, that's very special.
But I also think it's like there's something about that feels so surreal about our jobs where it's like I don't sometimes feel or process that I've done something until I can like share it or like post about it. Not that it's about social media, but until I can like put it into the world and be like, I did this thing, like it just, yeah, like I,
real.
you know, getting to work with Katy Perry was like one of the coolest things that I've ever gotten to do. And like, that was just like such an honor because I've just been a fan of her since like I saw her on Warped Tour. You know, she's an icon. She's the queen of pop. Please come and save pop music, Katy Perry. I love you so much. That was wild. But it didn't even feel like it really happened until she like shared one of the like some of the photos online, and I was like, oh my God, like I really got to work with Katy Perry. Like, that's insane.
It is
like,
insane.
What is
I mean, I look
even
through
seeing these now. I'm like, what?
Yeah, and I look through
When did I do that?
a lot of your portraits, and it really is unbelievable. And I wonder, you know, some of them are very interesting to look at because of how you've cultivated the shot and what else is going on.
That's Lingun, by the way, who took me on my first tour, and that's Beyonce.
Yeah, the queen.
The fuck?
Ridiculous. But like, you know,
Literally what?
I'd imagine that there's this sense of like,
no,
I have to come up with an inventive and an interesting way.
Like the queen right there. What?
I don't know, guys. I don't even know. It's so wild. I'm so lucky. Like, all I've ever wanted is to work with every woman that I've ever loved, and I literally have gotten to do that. It's so wild.
Cool.
That's number one right there, though.
And I will say, like, you know, having you come into the forum setting and hearing that there's like this highly accredited photographer coming, I was like a little intimidated. I was like, oh shit, like I'm not gonna,
I was so scared.
But you're like, you share your knowledge, you're inspirational,
We have so much fun.
You're collaborative, like, you know, I think it's an important thing, and I think there's going to be a lot of people that are inspired by your story.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. With the forum, though, I also think it's like the way that the team has like created that space and like
Totally.
the way that it enables me to be like that.
Shout
like,
out Rita and
Shout
Kelsey.
out Rita
Yeah.
and Kelsey and Aaron and Patrick.
And Aaron Patrick, yeah.
But Rita is literally the best, and Kelsey is so great. And like, I remember when I started there, I didn't even feel like I had just started there. Like, I was like, oh my God, I get to work here. Like, this is so insane. I was really nervous. Just because the history of that place. It's like arguably one of the most important venues, if not the most important venue in LA.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh, it's the best.
It
Prince
really is.
saved the forum.
It really is.
Right?
It's amazing.
It's the best.
I'd imagine with, you know, people choosing you as their photographer, there's a sense of like, okay, there's an interesting shot that I've seen her do, or there's an interesting style that she has that I want to have as part of my repertoire now. How do you cultivate a unique shot as far as your, like, how should I phrase this? In your estimation,
What?
how do you come up with an idea that you think, okay, this isn't just a shot that anyone else could have taken because I'm here to do one of my shots? Does that make sense? I don't know if I phrased that correctly.
No. There's one that's been.
He doesn't get it, but I think she does.
There's one that's been showing up on here that's of Ethan Bortnick, who is the sweetest little angel you'll ever meet in your life. And I think it's really cool when artists come to me and like trust me to execute and like help creative direct their vision. Like Ethan is like such a visionary. He is going to be so massive. I don't know if you've gotten into Ethan Bortnick yet, but
I haven't, but I
is
will
the
after
most
this
insane
show.
piano player you'll ever meet. But his shows and his music are like so crazy and cool and upbeat and like wild. And he plays the piano like unlike anyone else you'll ever see in your life.
Does he have
great.
curly hair?
Yes,
I've seen him.
he's
And he plays
yes,
Yeah.
he's so fucking cool. But he had the craziest creative for this EP and came to me with the vision of it, and like it was like literally about his sleep paralysis demons and like all this stuff. And
I know exactly what you're talking about. He is absolutely wide. I didn't know you worked with him. That's awesome.
So there's this photo that's been popping up that has all these like little starry lights on it, and it's him on a piano. And that one was really cool because we just got to like That's weird that you included that man in this slideshow. I didn't even notice that. Oh, that guy.
It just got slipped in.
And then Adam Lazara. What? I do remember that Kanye moment, though. It was absolutely insane that year at Coachella. Because we didn't know he was coming out, and we were shooting Kid Cudi, and I was like standing. I had like climbed onto this which is so inappropriate. But I climbed up because the stage in Sahara tent at Coachella is like. Also, I am so bad at staying on topic. I'm so sorry. The stage at Sahara is literally. It was like at least 10 feet high that year. I am not over exaggerating. Like I couldn't even reach it if I was standing up with my hand over my head. So I crawled up onto this little like road case thing because somebody else was up there too, and I was like, fuck it. I shoot here. I'm doing it. So I crawled up there and I was like on my knees, like ducking very low. And I had pulled my camera down to like look at some images because this was pre-mirrorless times. This was before mirrorless, the BM era of my life. And I remember like ducking down and then going back up, and literally it was like Kanye jump scare. Like he was right in front of me, like kneeling this close to my head. And I was like,
There's the picture.
Shit.
There's the picture.
Oh, yes. This photo, Ethan.
No, you missed it.
I don't even remember what the question was, but I remember that I was talking about Ethan and getting to create and execute that vision. And
Right. I initially started with just
What?
coming up with a unique way to shoot a photo.
Yes.
And kind of
How do you do what you do?
put your own spin on things.
Guys, I don't know.
Yeah.
I love
It's
making a
just
mood
about doing
board.
your thing.
I love putting PDFs together. It's like my favorite activity. So I build out PDFs for every single project that I do, and I like present a deck based on like what our conversations are. Like if the artist has creative ahead of time, I just like love building a world on a PDF. It's probably one of my strengths.
Are you someone that believes that everyone has a good picture to take, or are there some people that are just unphotogenic?
Oh no. Everyone is photogenic.
Yeah. It's just about finding that moment.
Humans are beautiful. I think everyone is perfect. I like love imperfections in people. As much as I'm like really hard on myself about it, I think everyone is beautiful and perfect and photogenic. And I feel like
as a photographer, do you hate being in front of the camera?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I'm deeply uncomfortable right now.
And we appreciate you.
Yeah.
So
Give me
uncomfortable.
Massively appreciate you
No,
being
I'm
here.
very excited. This feels very safe. Look at Kiki. She's just falling asleep.
Ashley, you are uberly talented.
You really are. And the last thing I kind of wanted to touch on, because we have taken a lot of your time and we really appreciate you being here.
I didn't realize we've been talking for an hour already. What the heck?
But you know,
It flew by.
this is to be a creative is difficult in any creative field, right? There's so much competition and this and that, but there's also a sense of, you know, pitting men against women in certain industries and an unfair balance of pay. What have you found is the current theme of the industry that you're in terms of, is it fair for men and women? Is there a space for everyone? Does it feel like kind of exclusive to a certain respect? What's the temperature? Is that a loaded question?
Yeah. Well,
Is it A? Is it B? Or is it C?
No, I had you know, we started talking about in the beginning. Sorry, my allergies are so unhinged. I'm like, in the beginning of the combo, we were talking about like being competitive, and I was kind of open about how I was really insecure when I started, right? And I think that's something that I've literally beat myself up about for most of my career. And I had an incident happen recently. Did I tell you about this?
I don't know.
Oh man. Well, we're on Twitter, my least favorite place right now.
Yes, I did see that.
So, but a lot happened, and basically there was this male photographer that I have not spoken to much ever, really. And I saw him about a year ago, and it was like a super chill, like exchange, whatever. I thought we were chill. And then I got this like really awful text at like 1:30 in the morning, like 2 weeks ago from him being like, you're a piece of shit, basically. And like, you're really competitive and you're awful and like all this stuff. And it was clearly very much a reflection of like what he's been going through.
Right.
But it
Projecting.
started, first of all, don't come for an Aries because I was up stewing on this all night. I literally probably went to bed at like 8 finally. But I had reached out to some of my peers because this is something that this person has done to a lot of other people, including like a lot of my male colleagues, some of which, well, these specific ones that I had reached out to are men that I've literally like came up on Warped Tour with in like 2013, 2012, 2014. You know, we all like started on Tumblr together. So one of them very, very much came kind of, you know, to defend me on Twitter as well, just being like, hey, like, this is the message that you sent me and these are all my receipts, whatever. But after having another conversation with him, which is my friend Josiah Van Deen, who's incredible, he actually said something to me that was so nice. And I was just like, you know, I don't remember exactly what the conversation was, but I was like, you know, I really am like so regretful of like how, you know, insecure I was and like how competitive I was. But this was like 10 years ago, you know, and I think like we all kind of work through those things and feel that way. But like I've done enough therapy in life now that I know that it really just all stems from like my wounds, you know, and like we have to talk about those. And he said something to me that meant literally so much. It had me in tears. And he was just like, I don't remember exactly what he said, but it's just summarize. It was like, you know, you probably like had to be that way coming up because you were the only woman, like only female photographer coming up on Warped Tour with like all these men. It was like me and Lisa Johnson. And like, I remember, Allison Murata was like another one who was on Warped Tour really early. That was a female photographer, but I really can't think of that many others. And he was like the first person ever of my peers to be like, hey, like, you know, you were actually the only woman of like out of all these men. And like, you had to kind of be a little more competitive and like aggressive to be taken seriously. And I was like, oh, that's like the first time anyone has ever kind of validated how I feel. Not that it makes it an excuse, but I think, I do think a lot has changed now. I do think that I'm still seeing a lot of men like doing really well, but I'm also seeing a lot of women absolutely killing it. And I think the playing field has leveled out quite a bit. But I also think like, especially in videography, like there's a lot less women. And we talk about this before. Like I just did Coachella. I shoot Coachella every year, which is like the biggest privilege of my life. Shout out Golden Voice team. But there are some amazing videographers that are women that are shooting for Coachella. And that's like really one of the only spaces I see women like shooting a lot of video. So there's definitely still some like, there's a lot of issues, but, it's getting better. Like from when I started, which now is what, like, I guess a decade. I've been freelance a decade officially now, which is
You need
crazy.
like some kind of medal or something, or like an award.
At least a pin.
Yeah, damn it, we should
Honestly,
have made you something.
How
Yeah.
dare you, the audacity. But no, I think it's getting better, but we still have a really long way to go. But I don't like to be like, fuck men, because there's a lot of men who are absolutely incredible and who are making space for a lot of women and non-binary creatives out there. But we definitely need to be better. I don't see, you know, and like there's a lot of white people in these spaces, and we have to change that too, you know, like, you know, I'm on so many photo teams for festivals, and I feel like they're really diverse. And like, I feel like Golden Voice does a really good job of like creating diversity in their creative teams for things, but it could be so much better.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know really any, you know, black female videographers that are shooting in these spaces. And like, there's we have a lot of room to go.
Well, and I think one of the most important things is to stop and take stock and be aware of some of those things, you know, because
100%.
you can totally put the blinders on and be in your own world and just focus on your career and what you're doing. But for you to be aware of that is important, I think.
We need
and
diversity
to say
so
that
bad
out
in
loud
these spaces.
and all of that.
Oh, yeah. Diversity is definitely a conversation we need to keep talking about. There's just not nearly enough. There's so many white dudes in photo. Like, we love you, but like, we gotta create spaces for other people and like for other people's stories. And I'm also, you know, I'm shooting with an Indigenous artist tomorrow, and I'm so excited about it. And I'm really honored every time that I do get to. I am put in the position to be able to document and like tell these stories, but I also don't always think that they're mine to tell. And I think it's really important for us to be aware of that too. Like, there's just so many people out there trying to create and get a start, and we have to like look out for those people and network with those people and empower those people too, because like there was not a lot of creatives making space for me when I started at all.
And I love
really,
that you
really
use
important.
the words making space for, because I was literally just about to say it's wonderful that you are making space for everyone else, it seems, just in your mentality and in the way that you operate. And that's important. And I think that everyone can kind of learn something from that. You know, just it's okay to extend some grace to people. It's okay to share your knowledge and not token gate it, and to include other people in the community and make everyone feel like that there's a place for them.
We have to.
Yeah.
We have to.
Well, thank you so
a combo!
So much for being here.
Oh my god.
This has been absolutely amazing. I'm so glad I got to sit down with you. Yeah.
Kiki, you did a great job.
Kiki has been so excited about this whole thing. She's like barely containing herself over here.
She's fallen asleep.
It's all she talked about the last couple of days. Oh my god, I can't wait for the show. But,
I love you.
But no, thank you so much for being here
Thank you
and
guys for
sharing
having me.
everything about
fun.
your life and your journey. And I think there's a lot to take away for people that want to do something and maybe feel like, I don't know where to start. It's just about leaning into the thing you love and trying to really go for it, it sounds, and to just make that attempt and see what happens. And
Yeah.
all right,
You can do it.
You can do it.
You can do it.
We appreciate you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much
That's,
for giving me a safe space. I don't do things like this very often, so I am
know,
really
it
grateful.
It took us a little while to get, but I'm glad.
Yeah,
I'm glad
I just
you're
get really
comfortable.
scared,
Yeah.
but
And
this felt
yeah.
very safe. So thank you, and thank
Absolutely.
you for having me on. And
Absolutely.
like you're one of the first people I've ever talked to who like hasn't consistently interrupted me as a woman. So like that's crazy. Thank you so much.
No,
You'd be
like,
so surprised.
We're like,
So
no,
thank
the
you.
whole point is like for you to come here and share.
Thank you,
Yeah.
and thanks for asking such great questions. I had so
you.
much fun.
Yeah, just before we go, it is very hard to like try to stay on track
I
with
know.
with some of the things that I want to like
all
bring
creatives.
up and not step on like what you're saying, because you had so many great things to say, and I was like struggling like this is not the time to interject because she's saying such wonderful things. So it was really a great interview, and we appreciate you. Thank you to everyone that showed up today, especially Dave's mom.
Yep.
Because
Oh.
she is a ride or
Shout
die,
out, Mom.
and I will always love that
Yeah.
about your mom.
Just killing
so
it.
cool that
Just
she
killing
just
it.
always shows up. Thank you to everyone else that showed up. We love you. We will see you next time. Sapo Studios.
Thank you.
Out.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.